get into game number 2. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. In the red, in the bottom right-hand corner, is Revenant, and in the upper left, playing Undead. This is SwordPuppy. Now, this is our second game of the day, and this day started off with games, yes, but also massive patch changes. The last major patch before the release of Warcraft 3 Reforged has just hit, and so in light of patch 1.31, SwordPuppy, who is a player that oftentimes plays human, has decided to switch to playing Undead here, and that is a very sudden change. Now, he did play both races previously, but specifically to change because of a patch that dropped just about an hour ago, or an hour prior to this tournament starting. That is a big decision to make. Now, we'll talk about some of those patch changes a little bit as they become evident, but for all intents and purposes, this is a very standard opener, no buildings built anywhere else. And one of those reasons is because you can only build Undead buildings on Blight. Now, Blight is the kind of creepy looking substance coating the ground near there, and that should tell you, or that should be pretty self-evident. It's just kind of a weird function, but it keeps some crazy shenanigans from happening if you could just build Undead buildings everywhere. Now, our first few scouts are coming out on the map. This is that Acolyte scouting. It's just one of the basic workers, and it's going to see the forward Voodoo Lounge being constructed and then run away. That's about all it does. Acolytes are very one-dimensional here, so we'll see if he's going to be able to pull this creep camp. Yes, he will. And he's going to try to drag it over here to this Voodoo Lounge. Oh, he's going to get denied, but he does actually force a cancel on there by dragging that creep camp. Really, really exciting strategy to see used, and that's what happens when you build your buildings too close to the camp that they are trying to creep. Now, this is that Blade Master I was talking about earlier. He is going to be going up against Duke Rage Reaver, which is apparently the name of this Death Knight here. Death Knight, the most common Warcraft hero to see the Undead start with, just because it is kind of a hero that does a little bit of everything. But most of what it does is heal. It does a lot of healing. Area of effect, single target, healing, damaging, it's got it all. And specifically, its main unit, or its main ability, Death Coil, is very, very strong and versatile. It gives you the opportunity to deal damage or heal your own units. It looks like he got a ring +3. Circlet picked up there for the Blade Master. Now, let's talk about the Blade Master, because this unit does an insane amount of damage thanks to its ability to critical strike, but oh, Creep Jack, he's going to go in for it, gets the last hit with a 40 damage crit. Oh my goodness. Now, let's talk about what that means. So what just happened there is the Blade Master turned invisible and was able to come up and get the last hit there on that creep. At least I believe that's what happened. If I missaw that, then blame my eyes, not my brain. Because I at least think that was what happened there. So he steals the experience from killing that unit, which is huge, because that's the main reason that you kill these neutral monsters early on, these creeps, because you want that experience, you want the gold, you want the item, and if you don't get that last hit, then you lose that. So that's a little bit unfortunate. Now, getting the last hit there with the Death Coil is what you should see as a reaction to this Blade Master kind of stealing some of these creeps sneakily. Because you want to make sure that you one-shot it, get the unit for yourself. On the other side of the map, let's see what we have. Revenant creeping over here. It looks like he's going to pick up the Manual of Health. Oh no, picks that one up. A lot of times you'll actually see pro players leave the tomes on the ground, but just because that one gave health, you probably want to go ahead and grab it instead of trying to save time running away. See what the next item is, another Circlet. Now, you know, Circlets are not bad because they do give you additional stats, but they don't give you a ton of damage, so they're not like Claws of Attack +92 or whatever, mostly +6, but you get the idea. Let's see what we have coming up here. Crypt Fiends coming out. It's not anything unique at all. This is pretty much exactly what we should expect to see, including a little bit more creeping on both players' sides as they go throughout. Now, this is Ancient Isles, so it's a map that shouldn't be too unfamiliar to a lot of our players, but the map order actually was. We only revealed this just before the tournament started, and so they might not have been exactly sure what they'd have to play on when, and so you'd have to prepare specific styles for each one of the maps, and there are about 7 of them. So you really have to have a lot of breadth of knowledge, or a lot of breadth of knowledge, not just depth. Ring of Regeneration coming out there as well, and let's see what happens as the tides of battle turn here, because Revenant is actually going to progress out on the map here, see if he can't get a little bit of, well, not a creep jack, but a camp jack, taking those creeps away from SwordPuppy, who is just hop, skip, and a jump across the river there. It's coming up next, okay, Temple, along with the Lich. Now, the Lich is another very strong undead hero, tons and tons of burst damage potential, and so that's going to allow SwordPuppy a very strong kind of burst once this Blade Master does reveal himself. Now, whenever your units glitch out like that, you can kind of tell, wait a second, there's a Blade Master near here, and actually going for a bunch of harassment. It's so difficult to deal damage to the Blade Master because you know he can just turn back invincible once again. There's a little bit of extra frost armor, the Revelation coming in, and unfortunately, the Blade Master is not going to be able to pick up that kill. You don't want to dive too deep for it. You can wind up getting your Blade Master surrounded deep in enemy territory, and you never want to have that happen. The Wand helping this illusion at least get across the map and be annoying, primarily just there for scouting, so you're not really going to be too worried about that on your side of the map. The biggest deal is that it's scouting, and that means it's seeing exactly what your tech transition is going to be, exactly what your unit production is, and all of that is just perfect information. Undead is not the most versatile of races, but he at least will have the advanced knowledge of exactly what's coming his way with that scout coming in. Now we do have the second hero for Revenant coming out there as well. It is going to be that Shadow Hunter, so healing waves and maybe a few wards out there later on. Oh man, let's watch this Blade Hunter. He's getting slowed out a little bit by that frost armor, but it's not really going to stop it or scare it away too much. Taking a little bit of damage from these fiends here. I think he can just come back and forth and back and forth. He's looking for the last hit. Oh, he doesn't go for it. If he had, he might have been able to get it because of the death coil coming in a little bit too early, but he's going to shrug that off and force the immediate town portal home. Town portal, of course, when you use it, it is going to remove your hero from any danger that is out there. So obviously when you drop very low, that's what you want to go for. Creeping the last of the creeps near the Goblin Merchant. It's going to clear that out and really open it up for business. One change, at least, is that Boots of Speed are not cheaper, but what did they change about that? Sorry, I'm a little bit unfamiliar with the patch changes. I think what they did is they made it so that boots can't drop from neutral creeps, but they can be bought from the Goblin Merchant. There's 2 of them there now. So it's supposed to keep players from trying to fight over them from latency because they can be a very impactful early unit. Oh man, now they're actually on the Destroyer. This is so huge. Oh my god, this is actually the most impactful moment of the game. The Obsidian statue is going to get taken down, and that's such a huge unit. It gives area of effect healing or mana regeneration based on the mode that it's switched into. And that is, man, it's so rough to lose that early on. It's a huge commitment, a big investment, and oh man, it's just not going to be the best unit, or it is the best unit basically to pick off. Death Coil coming forward is actually going to heal up that Crypt Fiend and keep it from getting killed there momentarily. A nice Cyclone is going to lift the Blade Master on up, and going for a surround, but does this really matter all that much? I think you just try to get the healing coming through, and he squeaks through! How does he escape these 100 damage crits? Are just coming one after another after another. One more last hit, and there it goes. Boom goes the Dynamite and the Crypt Fiend, a couple going down. Now, like I mentioned in game number 1, each individual unit death is very impactful. You do not want to lose units early on because it can really set you up for a lot of early weakness. But continuing to train these Crypt Fiends to make way for this the Spirit Walkers that are coming in behind them. This is going to kind of be the strategy you see SwordPuppy start with and really just stick to for quite a while. Raiders in production, as well as a little bit of extra tech there from the War Mill. Going to be getting quite a few upgrades coming in from that. And really, that is such a huge kind of moment here for our Orc player. Getting these Raiders out is going to make it very, very difficult for SwordPuppy to try to get out there on the map. They just deal so much damage to buildings. They can really get in there and one-shot your weaker units. And you're playing Fiends, you definitely cannot underestimate how easily those are going to go down. But let's keep an eye on the creeping patterns. We don't see any attempt at really stealing too much. It's just going to be creeping for you, creeping for me. And eventually, we're going to have Revenant move out again. Now, this move out is, like I said, going to be bolstered by those Raiders. They are going to be leading the charge, netting everything up. And we saw how that already has led to a very strong engagement in the first fight there for Revenant. Both players kind of milling about. Blade Master going in for the flank, or at least starting it off with a 70 damage crit. Once again, focusing these Obsidian statues. They are so huge. You cannot afford to lose them, especially for free. Oh man, Raiders, they're just inserting everything out on the map. It's just such a difficult unit to deal with early on, especially when you've been set behind early on. You can't afford to be forced to fight there. That's such a great way that we're seeing Revenant kind of take control of this game little bit by little bit. Blade Master level 3. Can't see exactly what he's skilled, so I won't know what he's putting his points into unless I'm just totally oblivious. Yeah, that would be good information to have, but unfortunately I do not. But let's keep an eye. Whoa! What is that? Is that a Pit Lord? A Lord of the Pits? I would just never have seen that or expected to see that. So there's a couple of things that you can do as an Orc. You can try to just go with your racial heroes, but in general, getting a anything like a Dreadlord or I guess a Crypt Lord next. I mean, Crypt Lord you just barely ever see it, and Dreadlord can be a little bit cheesy with sleep, but we're seeing a Pit Lord, and I don't really know when the last time I saw one of these was, because it is just not that common to see at all. But it does a metric ton of damage. That's a ton with an E. That's how much it does. And oh, look at it being stomped by that Tauren Chieftain. A third hero coming out here for our Orc player Revenant as well. Lots of crowd control and just so much damage. There's another stomp. Getting the crowd control that he needs, continuing to push this undead army back. A low health grunt in the back. Is that going to go down here? The Destroyer making short work of everything that he can. This is such a close fight, but I think actually SwordPuppy might be turning this. The Kodo Beast in the back is being targeted. It's being chased. It's one death coil away. Is it going to be able to get out of range quickly enough? I think the answer is yes. I guess not enough mana there on that Death Knight. Actually, yes, he does have enough. I'm waiting for the cooldown and actually using it to save his own unit instead of targeting one of his opponents. Trying to get away. He's got a low health Fiend there, so maybe that's going to be the target, but nope. Or a low health Ghoul. The Fiend burrows there. That's what you're seeing. In case you're wondering why there's a health bar on the ground, Fiends have the ability to burrow underground, and you can see that's a pretty good way to keep them alive. Sacrificial Pit coming up. We're going to be sending the Acolytes into there so that they can run around the map and scout for free as they turn into invisible shades. But before we get to the sacrificing, let's talk about what has been sacrificed so far. You know, Revenant is not without losses, but I feel like SwordPuppy has gotten the worst end of a lot of these battles, and especially when you're going for a Pit Lord, you know, that's not a surprise that happens very often for sure. Okay, Blade Master getting the free scouting that he is often known to do. He scouts, he deals damage, he runs around, he really just does it all. Wow, what a hero. I think those are all of the reasons that Alchemist is getting nerfed in the current patch. But hey, Blade Master does it too. I guess he doesn't heal stuff, but you get the idea. Now, creeping the big camp. This is a big moment for SwordPuppy. If he can take this Red Dragon down uncontested, not only is that gold, XP, items there, that tome coming through. I mean, that is just such a big deal because he crept the mercenary camp really uncontested, and now he's going to get a free TP away. Yes, you can teleport out of nets, in case you guys were wondering. Gets in, gets out. Big moment there for SwordPuppy, except that he did have to use that TP scroll. Not really the biggest deal, because now not only does he have all of that, the benefits I just listed of killing that Red Dragon camp, he also is back home defending his base, so there's not really any chance for a counterattack. But while the Blade Master is over here scouting, it's not really doing much of anything else. So it's not out there creeping. It's not out there helping this army be very potent out on the map. One thing that you should notice is that while there's 47 units, or 47 food worth of units there for SwordPuppy, that's exactly where he wants to be, because once you go over 51, you start mining less gold. I think it's about 30% less, and that's a big deal, because every moment that passes, there's more resources coming in for SwordPuppy than there are for Revenant, who I think went up to about 70, maybe just shy of that. I think it was about 60, but still, he's over that upkeep cap, and that's a huge deal, because it just means the longer this game goes, he needs to make his superior unit cap count. There's the shade I was talking about earlier. The Sacrificial Pit allows you to turn the worker unit, the Acolyte for the Undead, into this shade. It's invisible, it runs around the map, and it's really, really hard to deal with if you don't know that it's been sent to track your army around the map. And I think something so key right now has been this vision for the Orc player Revenant with his Blade Master, and now SwordPuppy's going to be getting a little bit of that similar style of vision himself. Undead choosing to play this very, very defensively. Neither team going for an expansion just yet. I think the biggest thing, or the biggest moment, is going to be when that does come down, because if you can defend it, it's such a huge moment in this game, but if you can't, like is often the case against Orc, it's just, I mean, Raiders are so good at killing buildings, so it's hard for an Undead to keep their base alive, especially when they start these new fledgling bases. They either have to send their army, stick their army right there defending, or, I mean, alternatively, you can try to get out there and put on so much pressure that your base can come up behind it, but as you're seeing right now, the advantage does go to our Orc player, and so Revenant is really kind of leading the charge here. He's got his War Mill upgrading upgrades, which is, a little bit self-explanatory, but what am I watching here? A Frost Frostworm coming through there for SwordPuppy. He is really taking all the way up. You thought that Red Dragon was hard to take down. Well, Frostworm's almost exactly the same, except that you can build them instead of just having to fight them out there on the map. Lots of Headhunters out for Revenant, and so let's see what SwordPuppy is doing this as a means of dealing with them. In general, ranged units deal a lot of damage to flying units, so you gotta kind of think about that. But the big deal, I think the course of the game will be decided by this expansion. If Revenant is able to hold that expansion against all these Frostworms, especially if they're not scouted. Did the Blade Master run in there far enough to see it? He has to know about it by now. What was I saying? These Frostworms are a big, bad unit. To give you guys a little bit of a comparison, Orcs Tier 3 is basically non-existent, so they're very, very strong on Tier 2 units once they upgrade their main building once. But for Undead, they really just keep getting so strong. Destroyers, Frostworms, the Obsidian statues on the ground, healing and giving mana. This is a very big moment here for SwordPuppy. And actually, maybe even the final fight of the game. Look at that, the Chain Heal is going to come through. The Raiders in the back, but look at that, the Shadow Hunter very, very low. He is going to get healed up to the last second. Back in the back. Got the Soapy Master will be regenerating mana through this entire thing. The Pit Lord getting the experience he needs. But look at that huge stomp coming in from the Tauren Chieftain, and a nice consumed there by the Kodo Beast up in the front, but he's getting targeted down. He goes down and frees the Fiend inside. The Frostworm continues to deal damage throughout all of this, but everything else is dropping on the ground. And right before that Frostworm falls, he is teleported back to safety with that TP. All in all, still a decent fight on both sides, but at the end of the day, Revenant able
a player's forces are
to force that TP home. Now the Frostworm healing up ever so slowly, about that fast, is going to be a huge unit, not just because it takes up a lot of food, a lot of your just space in your army, but you definitely do not want to lose these. Frostworms, because they are such a high tier valuable unit, if they survive, if you're able to add more and more of those onto your army, it just gets so much more difficult for your opponent to deal with them. I just can't overstate the terror that comes from letting those build up. Double destroyers up in the air, those are units that do provide a huge buff of damage to your team, but you got to steal mana to do it, so you got to get that from somewhere. Bestiary making more of those Kodo Beasts, right? Actually, I guess just one. It used to be that Orc had the only unit in the game that had a buff that stacked with a similar buff, an item buff. So you could get the Kodo War Drums, but then you also had an actual Kodo, and all of that would buff your units. Well, can't stack that anymore with this new patch, so they're not quite as good. But hey, look at this. It's actually a huge stomp coming through from that Tauren Chieftain. Keeps those Fiends still for basically forever. And actually, we're seeing the addition of these Taurens in there, even without their Master upgrade. The Pit Lord going down, though, is such a big moment as Revenant routes the undead army. They might even pick off this Destroyer in the air. It does go down. Chain Heal will keep too much more, or rather allow the rest of Revenant's army to keep the chase on. Fiend dropping low. Will it be taken out? Yes, it will. Can't burrow anymore. Scan comes through, and another huge Tauren Chieftain taunt. The Death Knight being focused. Focused down. It's going to get the invul coming through and allow it to stay alive, stay in the fight a little bit longer. That doesn't last forever, and indeed, there is the Hex. The damage coming through, the last hits, come on! And that is a dead Death Knight. GG, well played from SwordPuppy, and Revenant will claim victory in game number 2. Congratulations to Revenant after a pretty heartbreaking defeat at the hands of Moon in game number 1. Revenant is able to bring it back